A true freshman starting at cornerback at Ole Miss this year, not as far-fetched as you think.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. Today, we are talking about the freshman that Lane Kiffin called out as a standout and what the realistic expectation for their playing time, what's that going to look like? Then we turn our attention to Austin Simmons, who's heading into a make or break 3 or 4 days as QB1 for this team. If Ole Miss goes as far as we want, this next 4 days will be absolutely huge, and I will explain. But first, we got to talk about the true freshman that Lane Kiffin singled out for a huge scrimmage, and now he's running with the first team. We're going to pay attention to that. We break down what that means and why it could be one of the big storylines of camp. All of that and more right here on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're free and available in all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. And what that is the most fun way to follow Ole Miss sports. Do us a favor and like the video, comment on the video, subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcatchers you are on, and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing, keeps all of this absolutely free. But if you want even more, you can join the Insiders program on the subtext link below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel. So give it a try. Right now, a bunch of stuff on Dante Core got put out today. It's not like a message board. It's more like texting and being delivered directly to your phone. Don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. And coming up on Ole Miss Trivia, the clue is 1983 Ole Miss and the Egg Bowl, and it has nothing to do with the Immaculate Deflection. We'll talk about that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. So one of the coolest stories of fall camp is kind of unveiling as we speak. And Dante Core having a big scrimmage and being called out directly by Lane Kiffin, and then coming to practice on Monday and working out with the one. See, the way Ole Miss's football practices go is a hierarchy system. They practice on 2 fields. The ones and the twos are constantly up on one field doing their team stuff. The 3s and below are on the other field. So while Dante Core, when he first got signed, he struggled, legitimately struggled, to the point where he was running with the 3s and 4s and not necessarily performing up to an expectation that would get him promoted. He ends up getting in with the scrimmage, having a monster scrimmage to the point where he got promoted to the big boy field. He is in line for legit playing time. He is in line for an elite rotation piece. And right now, other than Winston Watkins, and we'll talk about some of the freshmen, he's probably the lone freshman that is slated to get a good bit of playing time this season. That's Dante Core. He was a 3-star at Choctawhatchee High School in Florida, the Panhandle. He committed to the Auburn Tigers. He transferred. He decided to decommit to the Auburn Tigers and move to the Ole Miss Rebels on November 11th, in that range, a couple of weeks before signing day. Dante Core has all the athletic ability that you would want to see, to the point where it just flashes off of the page. Like I said, he likely knows LaDarian Clardy. There's a lot of camps and chances to meet the player. I don't know if they're boys. I don't know if they're friends, but Dante Core is from Fort Walton Beach, and LaDarian Clardy went to Escambia High School, which is in Pensacola. So they likely have run across each other in the past. Dante Core is a guy that, since he decommitted to Auburn and committed to Ole Miss right before signing day, we didn't have a chance to do the highlight type stuff of this player. And what you see with Dante Core is an elite high school athlete. Somebody that lines up, not afraid of physicality, all of the stuff that a Florida cornerback is known for. And Florida has put out some of the best defensive backs, period, over the last 4 years. They always joke about LSU and Florida, the DBU thing, always going back and forth. No, we're DBU. No, we're DBU. The reason Florida is even the discussion is because of all the cornerback talent that is available in that state. Dante Core is another one that Ole Miss was able to get away from the Auburn Tigers, and he is flashing in a major way. His rise this year in fall camp is precipitous and one of the best, if not the weirdest, stories in all of fall camp. Like I said, he was a guy that was running with the 3s and 4s and not necessarily performing at a level that warrants a promotion to getting playing time with the 1s in a walkthrough immediately after the first scrimmage. This next scrimmage on Saturday is his chance, if he takes the bull by the horns, his chance to cement himself in the rotation going into Georgia State. It's an absolutely fantastic story. And other than Winston Watkins, who flashed all during the spring, so a lot of the rise for Winston Watkins happened earlier on, this is the player in this fall camp that everybody needs to pay attention to. It's not Caleb Cunningham. It's not Andrew Maddox. It's not any of the numerous 4-stars that got recruited by Ole Miss a year ago. It is this 3-star player coming in, making plays, having himself ascend up the depth chart. Listen, there's lots of good players, and they're going to make it, and they're going to develop, but it is really cool when the light finally comes on for some of these athletes. And it looks like the light has come on for Dante Core. Now, maybe, just maybe, whenever he was going through fall practice and struggling, he was one of the players that were involved in the sad Memphis ordeal. He was the first one that came back. So he was probably the least amount going. But if you go through that, your perspective is going to change. It's just the way it goes. And Dante Core coming to work every single day, making an impression. Antonio Kite was on Monday's podcast, and he is another one that is making a big jump. He is somebody that was recruited by Pete Golding. When Nick Saban left Alabama, so did Antonio Kite. It didn't work out. He transferred back to a Pete Golding system. So there's a lot of familiarity of what goes on in that system. But he lit up on the eyes. You can watch his highlight on the Ole Miss official team site. Whenever Dante Core's name was mentioned, his eyes got bigger. And you could tell that he was excited about this player and what he could bring on. It's going to be really interesting. This is a big scrimmage, y'all. This is a really big scrimmage to determine where Ole Miss is going to end up in 2025. Because if Austin Simmons rebounds from his poor performance, I know he didn't have a horrible scrimmage, but if he just rebounds, avoids some of that pick six-ness of the first scrimmage, if Dante Core can cement himself as being the number 4 cornerback in this rotation, starter or not, which my sources don't think he's going to end up being a starter at cornerback. They think he's going to be in the rotation. It is really cool when the light comes on for a young player and they start to kind of figure it out. It is really neat to see. So we'll talk about that as fall camp progresses. This is a name that we're going to pay attention to starting now, essentially. Practice Thursday, practice Friday, scrimmage Saturday, and then next week is like a half week left of camp before school starts. We're getting real close to getting into game week, and Dante Core is right on the edge of becoming a big-time contributor for this football team. So this is Austin Simmons. He's heading into the biggest week of his young career, proving he can run the offense, build chemistry, and show that he is SEC ready. We'll break it all down next. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold prediction and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on the NFL season predictions, whether you're calling for the MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner to crown your Super Bowl champion before week one. It all kicks off this weekend. So take a flyer on the MVP race. I'm going with Jaden Daniels, seriously. Or maybe you can crown a champion in August. I like Buffalo. I think this is their year. Or parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning for your future bets now, because Future Day is just one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. This is a big weekend for Austin Simmons. It is. He's undoubtedly the QB1. There's nothing that can happen that could drop him down to the second quarterback or anything like that. But this is a big weekend if you look at the big picture for Ole Miss football. Whether people that have questions about him being able to run a team, whether him building chemistry, the questions about that are going around. Whether he can handle an SEC slate. It all starts to work out right now in the second scrimmage. And this is the most important scrimmage of all of fall camp. This is the scrimmage that is the equivalent to the second preseason game of the NFL, where the starters play 2 or 3 quarters, to where you're going to get your best look. They're going to try to make as much of a game simulation as possible. We theorized and speculated over the course of Monday that Lane Kiffin was scripting a harder environment for Austin Simmons in the first scrimmage. Now's the time where you start building confidence. Now is the time where it gets important for Austin to go. Listen, Austin Simmons, he doesn't have many snaps, but when he's played, he has looked really good. There's no getting around that. He was 19 of 32, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He looked better in the first, his series against the Georgia Bulldogs that kind of developed all the buzz around this young player. He looked better than Arch Manning did. He looked better than a lot of quarterbacks that went against the Georgia Bulldogs defense. Georgia may not have looked like they normally do, but they still looked pretty good. Austin Simmons has spent time this season trying to build chemistry on his roster, whether it's the so-called starting wide receivers of Deshaun Stribling, Caden Lee, or Harrison Wallace, whether it's the next level receivers. Deuce Alexander has made play after play after play this fall camp. Isaiah Hartrop has made plays and is one of the stories of this fall camp. When he was at, I guess it was Southeast Missouri, 51 catches, 706 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He is the leader in the clubhouse to be the punt returner. I expect to see these guys on the field in the first game, honestly. Traylon Ray, the wide receiver transfer out of West Virginia. Those are the ones that are at the top of the list. And then you've got the freshman stalwarts that are coming through, whether it's Caleb Cunningham, which I expect him at some point to get on the field this year. Maybe not at the very beginning. Winston Watkins, who I do expect to be on the field relatively early. And then you have Dylan Alford, who has had a really good, smooth camp. Samari Reed, who looks really decent as an outside wide receiver. The point is, there's a lot of weapons at the disposal of this quarterback. And whether it is those wide receivers or the running back room, going down to Shakai Mills-Knight or Kewan Lacey or Logan Diggs or Damian Taylor, there are weapons all over this offense. How you use them is where this scrimmage gets decided and how this scrimmage gets its importance. Just like the next 2 practices, Thursday and Friday, you need to have a good day. You want to have a good day. You want the chemistry to get there, because the second game of the season is a road game at the Kentucky Wildcats. The third game this season is a home game against the Arkansas Razorbacks. The fourth game is a home game against the Tulane Green Wave. The fourth game is a home game against the LSU Tigers. You get my point. Last year, there were some games that were interesting for Ole Miss. You want it to make it to the finish line through those 4 games for the Ole Miss Rebels. This year, it's a little bit different when you look at their schedule. They start off with Georgia State. We all expect that to go as we expect it to go. And you can see my prediction on the screen here right now. Like I said, at Kentucky, Arkansas, Tulane, LSU, Washington State. I do not expect Washington State to be what they were a year ago, but they still will be a team that is good enough to be a Power 5 team. They're still acting like that. Then it's at Georgia, at Oklahoma, it's in South Carolina at home, the Citadel at home, Florida at home, at Mississippi State. 9 games inside the state of Mississippi. One of the road games, the true road games, at Kentucky. And then you had that 2-game stretch of against Georgia and Oklahoma. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing exactly what that Oklahoma game will look like. This all begins right here. That is what the next 4 days is going to tell the story of that season. If this team is able to hit that 10-2 mark, will be determined over the next week or so. The physicality, the work ethic. Lane Kiffin talked about at the beginning of fall camp that he wanted a workman-like approach going in. And this is going to be developed over the next week. The next week is the most important week of practice going into a season. It is right before camp breaks, before all the distractions of school happen. Before that happens, the last little bit that you have together is absolutely huge. And this is massive for Austin Simmons. All of the stuff, chemistry, SEC slate, running a team, developing confidence, all of that stuff is going to be decided over the next week. And if he can do it, which I think he will, this Ole Miss football team can be pretty good, honestly, if you were going to ask me about that. Anyway, coming up in our final segment, Lane Kiffin shouted out a few freshmen in Monday's press conference, but don't expect too much playing time from them. I'll explain why next. As the summer winds down, there's something nice about getting into a routine that you love, and Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead. From bedding and linens to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair is a one-stop shop to refresh your home. I recently grabbed a recliner from Wayfair because of my surgery, and now it has been the perfect addition to my living room furniture and my home. In fact, even after this, I still use it, and it has become absolutely indispensable. Those recliners can be absolutely perfect and game-changing for you. This is the perfect time to get your home ready, whether it's organization or upgrading a workspace or making weeknight dinners easier. Get organized, refreshed, and back to a routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop for all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. I think it was On 3, Ben Garrett, I think, that did a story about true freshmen that could see the field this year, and he named a whole bunch of names. And I mean, they do a good job. I'm not doubting anything that they're hearing or anything like that. But me personally, just looking at what's gone on over the last 4 or 5 years, it's way too many names to know about. We talked about Dante Core earlier in this podcast. And I do think that he is on the cusp of being in the rotation and being one of those 1 or 2 players that get a little bit of playing time, whether it's Suntaran Perkins, Quinshon Judkins. If you come in and you're good enough, you can play, and they will play you. And Dante Core is coming in as a 3-star, but ready to go out of the box at Ole Miss. So Dante Core is obviously one of those guys. Now, when you look at the next ones, Now, I'm not talking about special teams. A lot of them are going to play on special teams because they're special athletes. But when you look at players that are in position to make an impact on the Ole Miss Rebels moving forward, the first player that I am looking at was signed Winston Watkins. Winnie Watkins is somebody that was in the social media sphere in the early part of not camp, but spring football. He was somebody that made play after play after play. You talk to sources, he's currently making play after play after play. He's somebody that I expect to get on the field sooner rather than later. But the problem is, and this is the problem that you're going to run into with Ole Miss true freshmen from time to time. Are you going to take Caden Lee off the field for Winston Watkins? And when you take Caden Lee off the field and you don't do 12 personnel, because Caleb Odom is a thing now to where I think 12 personnel is going to be used pretty consistently, that lets you know the substitution problem that they're going to have. They work at tempo a good bit. They do not substitute very often. There's a chance that Winston Watkins doesn't see the most part of the field over the season. He is somebody that can play. He has the talent to do it, but he might not play, if that makes sense. He's somebody that I think is the leader in the clubhouse for offensive playing time currently, not counting the two offensive linemen to see what's going on, but we'll talk about them in just a second. On the defensive side of the ball, there's Andrew Maddox, who, according to multiple sources, is playing really well in fall camp. But I do not know that he is going to play as a true freshman in regular game time. Like the stuff that Cam Franklin and William Eccles played in a year ago, yes, he will get those snaps, absolutely. But on a 2nd and 3 in the second quarter at Kentucky, will Andrew Maddox be substituted into the game? That is the question. And one of the rumors that I have heard from Ole Miss is the ability and want to shift Cam Franklin down from time to time into a 3 technique type position. Cam Franklin he's a monster. He has grown out of this world. I would think that they would trust Cam Franklin more than they trust Andrew Maddox. Again, this is not anything against Andrew Maddox. This is just going off the past of what they've done. So I would put Cam Franklin over Andrew Maddox in the rotation. Now, in practice, when they're doing their walkthrough and stuff like that, yeah, you're probably not showing stuff like that. You're not. You're not going to put that on film for anybody to talk about. But Andrew Maddox, I think, is going to play a little bit. But if you look at what they did with William Eccles and Cam Franklin a year ago, I think the path for Andrew Maddox is right about the same as that, if that makes any sense whatsoever. On the offensive line, 2 players called out by Lane Kiffin at his press conference was Connor Hawes, the offensive lineman out of Orlando, Florida, and Devin Harper, the offensive lineman out of Shreveport, Louisiana. Late flip from LSU. Connor Hall was a late flip from Arkansas, and they arrived ready to go. Again, the offensive line, in my opinion, is just like the defensive line. They might be ready to go. They might be ahead of the schedule, but I do not see early playing time in their future. Again, prove me wrong. I could be absolutely wrong on that. But if you go by what this coaching staff has done in previous years, these players are probably going to have to watch a little bit. Remember, the most important fact about this staff is they do not do OJT. They don't at all. There is no OJT on the staff. There's practice. You can make mistakes in practice, but once you get into the games, they expect 100% execution. Now, is that possible? No, it's not, but that's what they expect. That is the standard. You always talk about the standard. That is the standard, and they are demanding of your ability once you get into the game. Listen, Ole Miss had a wide receiver. I can't remember his name. a couple of 3 years ago, a little guy, played in the slot, had a massive camp, absolutely blew up, got on the field, did not make the plays that needed to be made, didn't hear from him any longer. Michael Trigg, the same type deal. Once they got in the game, if they made a mistake, you didn't hear it. He dropped a pass against Georgia Tech. Shortly after, he was off the team. Third, Aiden Williams, wide receiver that was an Under Armour All-American that came to Ole Miss, got into the game early on, had a big fall camp. They were very impressed with him, got into the game, dropped a couple of passes, lined up wrong, had a bust on a route. He didn't play anymore. This staff does not do OJT. And that is very important to realize, especially when talking about the true freshmen that Ole Miss have. They love this class. They absolutely love them. And they think a lot of them have a chance to be absolute stalwarts on this team. They are not going to put them into the game before they are ready, period. So we'll see exactly how that goes. All right. So today's question is about the 1983 Ole Miss versus Mississippi State game. Okay. Not about the immaculate deflection. We all know that Artie Cosby missed about a 20-yard field goal in Barron Stadium. The wind knocked it down the whole 9 yards. The one field goal in history, and I was there along with 200,000 of my closest friends, that both sides celebrated a field goal. But my question and the trivia question is, Mississippi State got out to a 17-0 lead in the first half in that game. That game that was won 24-23 by Ole Miss. Mississippi State got out to a 17-0 lead in the first half. But towards the end of the second half, there was a momentum shift. A player sparked a comeback that led to the immaculate deflection. Who was that scored a touchdown on a punt return touchdown that led to the comeback? Who sparked the comeback? We will talk about that a little bit later on. Put your answer down in the comments below. And also, we will give the answer a little bit later on in the day. So who sparked the comeback that led to the immaculate deflection with a punt return touchdown? Pretty cool stuff there. Leading to the immaculate deflection. That was my second game to go to live, the immaculate deflection. The first one was the 82 Egg Bowl that Ole Miss ended up losing, that Ken Austin was actually the quarterback for Ole Miss. So thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives. It's why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss Podcast. We're like 80% of that page. So don't forget to subscribe, like, or comment. On the podcast apps, if you do that, subscribe to the podcast side. Leave a 5-star review. It all helps the show out and is completely free. Your support means the world to us. If you want a little bit more, our Insiders program, the link to join is down below, a 14-day free trial and the easiest cancellation ever. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to college football's landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.